First, we'll say that we're here, as one might imagine, because of our client, Sonia Pang. She has a lawsuit that we've brought on her behalf against her former employer, the County of San Bernardino, and against Supervisor Joseph Baca Jr., who's been individually sued, whose office she served out of. Now, what the lawsuit is about, it's encompassed in the recent filings that some of you have copies of, and it's publicly available because it is filed and returned. We are on the road. The lawsuit is about public policy violations and discrimination on grounds of age and sex/gender, which occurred pertaining to Ms. Pang. Ms. Pang suffered and witnessed discriminatory, inequitable, non-inclusive, and harassing treatment at the hands of the county, largely through Supervisor Joseph Baca Jr., who threatened to fire anyone who spoke out against him. Mr. Baca commented on women staffers' physical features, sought to hire based on looks and not on experience, and preferred younger and experienced women because they were less likely to speak out about being underpaid, overworked, and subject to hostile working environment. It was that speaking out and her failure at going along to get along that ultimately cost our client her job. We allege the following. We allege violations of the Fair Employment and Housing Act, discrimination, harassment, retaliation, and failure to prevent all three. Public policy violations, also intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligence against Supervisor Baca himself. We also name him individually in the harassment discrimination cause of action, which is something that you can do under the law. There is a real irony that this issue involves a long-established, multi-generational public servant. We do not bring this lawsuit lightly because we should hold our public servants in high regard, and by and large we do. But they must also be accountable. It's not either or, it's both. A bit more information about the case. About December 2020, thereabouts, Ms. Pang was employed on the staff of Supervisor Baca at county, specifically as an executive secretary. In September 2022, Mr. Baca promoted her to district director / acting chief of staff. There's significance there. We allege that the two predecessors to our client in her position, both males, were paid significantly more than was Ms. Pang. We also allege that those who held similar positions at the county, namely chief of staff positions, leadership positions, running an office, made on average some $50,000 more than did she. Seeming to recognize that she was grossly underpaid relative to staffers in other offices with similar responsibilities, Supervisor Baca told Ms. Pang that she would receive a raise if she proved her loyalty and did a good job. Ms. Pang was referred to as chief of staff and relied on as chief of staff. She was well-liked and well-respected by her colleagues, both in her office and across county government, which is important for a county supervisor's office to be successful. However, in her promoted position, Ms. Pang got a closer look at Supervisor Baca's questionable conduct. She was witness to many of Mr. Baca's inappropriate, abusive, and illegal statements and actions. After forcing a former field representative who made a complaint about him to resign, Supervisor Baca specifically told Ms. Pang that if anyone reported any complaints about him to the HR department, they would be removed. He added that HR informs him whenever someone makes a complaint so that his knowledge of the complaint, of the identity of the complainer, and, dare I say, their ultimate fate, either forced resignation or termination, would be assured. You've got an extensive complaint there, it talks about quite a bit, but here are a few examples of questionable, including illegal conduct. Ms. Pang was constantly berated, often for a half hour or more, and sometimes publicly by Mr. Baca. Then, after bringing her to tears, he would seek to console her with somehow his arms winding up directed below her waist. Often, our client would find Mr. Baca looking at her in ways that made her uncomfortable, including looking at her breast area. In response to her apology for her car being a bit messy while giving him a ride, Mr. Baca responded by saying, "Well, I know you're a dirty girl," or words to that effect, in a flirtatious way that made plaintiff uncomfortable. Plaintiff never gave Mr. Baca a ride after that occasion. Ms. Pang and her colleagues were often forced to work on campaign-related tasks during their county hours, which was believed to be a legal violation. Further, Mr. Baca made clear his expectation that Ms. Pang would financially contribute to his campaign, leaving envelopes on her desk, stating that this was appropriate because all of the other supervisors' offices, staffers did the same thing. Mr. Baca made specific statements of a sexual nature to Ms. Pang about applicants in the office as well as actual employees. For instance, Supervisor Baca made it clear to Ms. Pang, that he preferred female job candidates that were physically attractive, did not have children, and did not have a political background. Basically, the less they knew, the better. He added that women should wear dresses and makeup to keep a, quote, good-looking team. Ms. Pang overheard Mr. Baca stating to another female that he liked how she looked without her glasses. This was a staff member that was made uncomfortable by those comments and told Ms. Pang so. Prior to taking a picture with another female staffer, Mr. Baca instructed the staffer to crouch down so that she would not appear taller than him in the picture. Mr. Baca also asked another female staffer and asked female staffers about their dating lives and other things that would be less than appropriate for someone that you only knew professionally. Upon the occasion of one of the female staffers announcing she was getting married, Mr. Baca instructed Ms. Pang to prepare to replace the staffer, as it was just a matter of time before she would get pregnant, or words to that effect. There were also issues related to people that were over the age of 40. For instance, Mr. Baca instructed Ms. Pang to give more work to a senior woman in the office to make her uncomfortable and push her out because she was aging, was always sick, and didn't do anything, but he didn't say the word anything, but soak up his budget, or words to that effect. And he actually told Ms. Pang that he needed that person's budget line in order to give Ms. Pang the raise that he promised. Our client never witnessed any of these women asking a question or making comments or otherwise acting in a way to invite the things that Supervisor Baca would say about their physical features. His comments were always unsolicited and uninvited, and Ms. Pang often heard directly from the women that these comments made them uncomfortable. Ms. Pang also saw other women paid less money for doing the same work as men, and that was her experience, which she hoped to be remedied, but she was a team player. We allege that Supervisor Baca was made aware of the fact that his comments and actions made women in the office uncomfortable, and we allege that the county was aware of his actions. Ms. Pang had seen the demise of former staffers, which we'll talk a bit about, that tried to properly direct Mr. Baca on issues surrounding the treatment of the staffers, and now she was trying to do the same thing herself with limited success. Upon witnessing inappropriate behavior, Ms. Pang tried to warn Mr. Baca to be careful about how he talked to staffers, particularly about their personal lives. Always prevalent, however, were his threats of him reacting, or his reaction to the complaints that are made, which he considered opposition and betrayal. Many times, Mr. Baca would abusively shout orders to Ms. Pang and threaten her with her job if she did not comply. He would yell and curse at her and threaten to make big changes if she did not do what he asked. In response to Ms. Pang's telling Mr. Baca that his words went too far, Mr. Baca would say that she is being too sensitive and lacked a thick skin. More, Mr. Baca reminded her that she had to be a little sick to be in this business, implying that the sickness manifested itself through cruel conduct to employees by the supervisor. Ms. Pang's failure to cooperate with Mr. Baca through unfettered loyalty that ignored legal requirements caused Mr. Baca to further berate and isolate Ms. Pang. She found herself excluded from meetings that were central to her job position and told inexplicably that she was not needed. Ms. Pang found herself repeatedly a target of harassment by Supervisor Baca, and the harassment only worsened after Ms. Pang attempted to have it stop. The staff witnessed the way Mr. Baca spoke to Ms. Pang, including his yelling, screaming, and beratement. While she tried to serve as a buffer between the supervisor and the staff, and particularly the women in the office, her emotional distress due to his treatment was obvious. Obvious enough, in fact, to the ones that she sought to protect and keep her chin up for. They ended up consoling her when she was moved to tears. Mr. Baca did not give Ms. Pang the raise she was promised for the multiple roles held. Ultimately, when Ms. Pang asked about the raise that she had been promised, Supervisor Baca stated words to this effect: "I can get another person for your position who's younger, prettier, and with no kids." Ultimately, not long after, February 5th, 2025, Ms. Pang was placed on administrative leave. A couple weeks later, February 21st, she was given a notice of termination. We filed a government tort claim on February 27th, 2025, because we do have non-discrimination related causes of action. It was rejected on April 9th, 2025 by the County of San Bernardino. We filed a claim with the California Civil Rights Department on August 21st, 2025, for which we obtained an immediate right to sue. Our respondents were again the County of San Bernardino and Mr. Baca himself. We filed this lawsuit on August 25th, 2025. Now, we will hear a brief statement from Ms. Pang.
I'm a single mother of 4, and I have long desired to serve my community through my work. I got an opportunity to do so with the County of San Bernardino and the Office of Supervisor Joe Baca Jr. I worked there from December 2020 to February 2025. The last 2 years as District Director and Acting Chief of Staff. What I'm doing now with this lawsuit is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. But if this is truth, not just my truth, but the truth, can give others like me a voice, it will be worth it. The truth is, I saw things done and heard things said that were inappropriate, abusive, and even illegal. The truth is, I try to protect all my colleagues, and especially female colleagues, but that made me the punching bag. That made me the punching bag for verbal abuse, isolation, and retaliation. The colleagues I sought to protect often end up consoling me. I am one of 9 staffers that have been forced to resign under the threat of termination by Supervisor Baca for speaking up about the toxic work environment and his illegal behavior. And the truth is, my livelihood was threatened and ultimately taken because I stood up for fair treatment of my colleagues who were often the target of Mr. Baca's inappropriate behavior.
Doing great.
I'm so sorry.
No, you don't be sorry.
My message today is one that I have lived before I came to work for San Bernardino County and the supervisor. It is a message of encouragement for all people who desire to do public service through their work and to do it in a supportive and not hostile environment. This is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, But even as I go through this current and ongoing difficulty, thinking of women, I'm sorry.
Okay. Take your time.
But even as I go through this current and ongoing difficulty, thinking of women like myself in the workplace who want to feel supported and safe gives me strength. Do not let anyone or anything discourage you from living out principles of honesty and integrity in your life, which includes your service to others. Stay optimistic and serve with passion. Continue to take responsibility for your life by demanding accountability from those around you. It's time to hold those in power accountable. I'm here to show you to be brave and speak up. Even if you feel weak and broken, together we are strong. Thank you.
Great job. Sonia, it's an honor to be representing you. You are so brave. And one clarification I'll add, she stated that she was one of 9 people that had been forced to resign. I'd say either forced to resign or were terminated, because she was actually terminated. So I'll make that quick correction. So it is an honor to represent this client, Sonia Pang, in her pursuit for justice. So let's talk about what that justice actually looks like. First, we need the county to do an honest and thorough investigation of the claims made herein. Let me be clear when I say this. We believe Mr. Baca's harassment of employees, including sexual harassment of women, is an open secret at the County of San Bernardino. The County of San Bernardino either knows or should know about it. This lawsuit does not occur in a vacuum. Related, we want to know what protections actually exist for county employees who make complaints about harassment and bullying. That is all the more important given that we are talking about a supervisor, small s, because Mr. Baca was over her and over others, that is actually a powerful and elected office holder called a supervisor, large S. We've heard a lot of stories about people feeling like they cannot go to HR in that circumstance and in that office. And we want the county to get to the bottom of it. Secondly, we seek the public's help. We want to hear from those that have been similarly affected at the county in general and involving Mr. Baca in particular. We believe that there are people out there, specifically women, who may have been sexually harassed, bullied, berated, or otherwise abused by Supervisor Baca. We make a direct appeal to them now to ask them to come forward and tell their stories. You can contact McCune Law Group at 909-557-1250. Predictably, the County of San Bernardino and Supervisor Baca will treat this situation either like it didn't happen and or that it's an anomaly. But we would submit that stories from those that are similarly affected, including those that saw our client actually suffer, will confirm that there is no anomaly here. We all have an interest in rooting out bullying and harassment in the workplace, including sexual harassment. That is all the more true when the workplace in question has a mission of public service. Finally, and importantly, and honestly, we seek redress for our client. Our client has suffered lost wages, past and future, severe emotional distress, and serious damage to her future employment prospects in the public service space, both within the County of San Bernardino and beyond. If Supervisor Baca has contacted any person who might have an impact on Ms. Pang's future employment prospects and said something that is patently false and amounting to defamation, We want to know about it. I'm a bit conservative in that I could have named defamation as a cause of action, but I didn't quite. But if I know more, if I know enough, if that information comes forward, I will amend this complaint. This is a difficult day because it reminds us that people who still suffer, particularly women, discrimination, harassment, and retaliation for trying to do what's right. But it is also a necessary day, as difficult as it is, as change sometimes does not want to come even when it needs to come. We are committed through vigorous representation of our client, which will include a robust discovery process, to get her the justice she deserves and to shine a light on a problem that has existed for far too long. So, for the cause of helping that change come, we are glad to be of service. With that, I'll take a couple questions.
You said the HR department would talk to Supervisor Baca and tell him who complained about him and so forth. You mentioned that earlier.
I mentioned that, and what I meant to say, and I think I said, is that he said that he found out about that. Now, was the HR department say that? I don't know, but that's what he said to people to keep them from complaining. But go ahead, finish with your question. I'm sorry.
In corporations, corporate America, that's, there's training that goes on, sexual harassment training, and all that, and you do surveys and about your management, and they always say that you don't have to put your name, or you can put your name, and there's never repercussions and so forth.
Right.
So I'm not sure how that is in a political situation, but you would think it's the same, right?
Well, it ought to be the same. And I think that you underscore a problem that we have. It would be lovely for us to understand that all we have, not to minimize it, is Mr. Baca stating that he finds out, as opposed to him actually finding out. But see, that's what speaking of finding out, that's what the discovery process is for. I don't know if the county is not following what should be their own rules as it pertains to HR, as it pertains to reports of harassment and discrimination. I haven't gotten to the bottom of that, to be honest with you. But we do believe, and we think that it'll come forward, that there are people that have made complaints that found themselves forced to resign not long afterward. And so part of discovery is connecting the dots. And admittedly, this is what we allege, and we understand that we have to prove it, and we haven't proven it yet. And in the discovery process, though, that is to discover. And so, of course, that's something that we're going to want to get to the bottom of. At best, we have a situation where Mr. Baca is being taken at his word when he threatens to end the career, at least in his office, of anyone that makes a complaint about him. I'm sure HR will say what it says about that, but that's what the discovery process is for.
And you have full access on discovery to, how does that work?
Those will be fights. I don't think there's any question about that, because among other things, in a case like this, where we believe it will be relevant what actually happened to other employees, we would expect roadblocks in that regard, right? And so therefore, depending on how it's done, whether you have protective orders, what you have in place, I am certain that they'll fight to make this about her and about nobody else. But I do believe that the fate of other employees has a direct bearing and tends to prove what it is that we're actually talking about. And so that will be, I'm certain, one of the many battlefields that we'll be dealing with in this case.
Thanks.
To your or Ms. Pang's knowledge, being that you mentioned it was one of 9 staffers that have been forced to either resign or been terminated, do you know if there has been previous investigations within the county, being that that's a pretty large number, 9 people to leave one county supervisor's office?
I will say this, inquiring minds absolutely want to know. Not sure what has happened in that regard. I must confess, we're not sure. But of course, we've got a lot of places to go and a lot of things to find out here because, I would argue, it's preliminary and it's very early, but I would argue that the turnover rates in other offices are going to be relevant as a comparison, right? So if we do a comparison and Mr. Baca has a little bit of a turnstile thing going on where he's got super high turnover, and then there's other people whose are much lower, then perhaps, we have something there. But that is something that we would be looking to understand further in the discovery process.
And just to follow that up, because of just my involvement with county government and local government, being that Ms. Pang was placed in a position that was higher than she had previously, at any point in time was her contract redrawn to reflect the pay scale or the pay period schedule for the county?
That's a good question. What I believe to be true, what I can tell you for a fact, is that she was grossly underpaid for what it was she was doing in the office, and there seemed to be an acknowledgement and a related understanding related to that. As you might imagine, somebody that's working for the county and things like that, there are certain benefits that are tied to it, et cetera. She was about 5 years in. And so there's a matter of, even for purposes of retirement and all those other things, being at whatever level you need to be at. And I think there was an acknowledgement that she was low in that regard, and that hopefully that was something that was supposed to be changed. But that's not a line in the sand that she drew, because if she had done that, she would never have taken that next responsibility and, those types of things. So we'll know more about that with the specifics as we go along, but we know that she was grossly underpaid, and we know that for what she did, she was paid a lot less than men were. Even Mr. Baca, for all the problems that we have here, we think he paid men a little bit better than he paid women. So we just did a press conference in the Pang versus County of San Bernardino and Joe Baca Jr. case. It's a lawsuit against the County of San Bernardino, who was our client's employer. She worked at the office of Joe Baca Jr., who was a county supervisor, a very powerful local politician, multi-generational. So this case is about justice. We have causes of action for discrimination, sexual harassment, harassment based on age, harassment based on sex, as well as public policy or whistleblower violations, as well as intentional and negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligence. So this case is a perfect example of having a client that is here because they have to be and not because they want to be. Ms. Pang would rather be on her job. She would rather be facilitating her career in public service. But instead, her life has changed because she stood up for what is right, because she stood up when he said inappropriate comments about women, inappropriate comments about her, and she suffered the ultimate penalty related to it. As difficult as this may be for our client, our job is to hold her hand, is to walk through it, find out everything we can, and hopefully leave that situation, a situation that she doesn't even work in anymore, better off than how it was. Days like this make me very encouraged, because for all the difficulties, it is absolutely worth it. So we'll see you next time.